Hello.
Hello, how is everybody doing?
Good evening, everybody. How are you doing? It is the last week of the month, and it's we're right, right, exactly. It has been a week. It's only Wednesday, and we're just very, very tired. Assignments. Ah, yes. Rubesco is free. All the assignments are turned
I
out.
knew you could do
Congratulations.
it. I knew you could do it. I'm so proud of you.
Hello to Michelle, who is waving from Naomi's couch. It's nice to see
Hi,
you,
Michelle.
Michelle. How you doing?
Hey, folks, have you seen the 48-hour movie that Team Kilder put together, in which Michelle both stars and knocks it out of the freaking park? If you haven't, perhaps if, some Kilder-related rocket scientist, Naomi, was in the chat, Naomi, they could perhaps drop a link, Naomi, to the movie now, Naomi, so you could all see how great the movie is,
It's
because it's
just
pretty
it's
great.
just subliminal. It's uncanny. Like he's just putting her name into your mind as if she might perform an action. Yes, you should watch it. It's very lovely. The other thing you should probably also do is I do believe the People's Choice Podcasting Awards are being voted for right now.
And you're people, and you have a choice, and the Secret of St. Kilda is a podcast,
That
right,
could win an
Naomi?
award. Hang on a second. I think I saved this link. I just have to scroll through my send yourself all the links Marguerite list. I can't find. Maybe I sent it to him. Hang on. It's been a very busy week, folks. We're a little
Who's
and
the
they're doing a
best?
scavenger
The
hunt as
best
well.
is you.
There is the movie. Excellent. That's about something else. Here we go. Listeners' Choice Awards, British Podcast Awards. Into the chat with me.
And it's
Ta-da!
sponsored by Audible, which means that anyone at the Associated Trade event won't be paid, but you might get a biscuit.
Shall we move swiftly on? Okay. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh,
Just in
yeah.
general about how you and I have this very pesky thing called ethics.
Principles.
Yeah.
So delicious.
Wait, I saved that tweet. No, it's on my phone. Hang on. There was this. I mean, is it a good biscuit? It's not that
It is
good of a.
not a good
It's not
biscuit.
paying your own train fare good of a biscuit.
Okay, so
You
here is.
describe it. I will find the quote.
Okay, so here is one of the veritable legion of issues on which this shitty, rain-soaked, bigoted little island sits on.
By the way,
And
have we mentioned it's been a nasty week?
been a long week, quite tired.
Yes.
And one of the
Where is
most
the
important ones in all of this is the simple fact that this island has a huge throbbing hard-on for volunteer events and believes very firmly that volunteer events are, in fact, their own reward. And as someone who, there's two people who worked volunteer events for a decade, you know what they get you? They get you sick
Yeah.
and poor.
So here's the quote that I really like, which is, "My take on unpaid work is simple enough that I'm surprised I haven't heard many other people saying it, at least not as succinctly." This is by Andy Montgomery. It says, "It is okay to do work that generates no revenue. It is not okay to get none of the revenue generated by your work." And that is a very succinct way of saying
Absolutely.
that if an event can be sponsored by a major corporation, then some of that sponsorship money can be spent on making sure that people aren't out of pocket to volunteer their labor to provide your content.
And to cut back across to podcasting events and what that means, you would be very hard pressed to find a podcasting event in this country outside the exception to the okay, not all volunteer shows suck. It's just we've worked a lot of volunteer shows that have sucked, and it's very easy for that culture to become toxic and pointed toxically at the very people which it relies on. Pod UK, probably one of the three best conventions I've ever been to, put
And
together
one
by
of the ways that
three
they
people.
And one of the ways that made that convention wonderful is that if you were giving a presentation, or if you were giving a workshop, or if you were doing a live show, what is typically done in lots of these sorts of situations, both physically and online, is that your attendance at that event was comped. So I don't have to pay out of pocket to attend the event at which I'm presenting, which kind of counts as the bare minimum, if you ask me.
Oh, it's absolutely the bare minimum, and yet somehow there are fan events which have money in most cases that look at their attendees and go, well, obviously you want to come here and be on 6 panels because that will help promote your career. Pretty sure the money that would pay my bills, which I spent getting here for 3 people to sit in a room and not understand my questions, might have helped more.
People have to go through really kind of complicated emotional hoops to figure out what they want their relationship to be with volunteering and fan events and non-professional events and all of that. And that position evolves and can change over time. We are very for legal reasons,
For legal
this
reasons,
is
this is a joke, Acast.
Right, exactly. Uh, we are quite fortunate to be at a point in our careers where where the concerns in our life are a lot more about time than they are necessarily about paying our own way. And that is seen as a progression, and therefore it's a position of privilege. And so we try to be very conscious about it. And the conscious decision that we've come to is that if your event is relying on volunteer labor to provide its content, then the minimum requirement for those people, the minimum level of support that should be shown to those people, is that they don't have to pay to attend. People get to make lots of decisions about if they want to travel. Virtual events don't have to deal with this problem at all. And we've been to some fantastic virtual events this year and in the last years or two where attendance was comped and we came and we provided content. Great. Brilliant. Equitable exchange. Everybody's happy. But when an event insists on in-person only content and the people therefore have to travel to provide this content, and the people are not compensated in any way, so they're incurring lots of costs and paying to attend, that's where we've decided for us right now we're drawing the line. And it's wonderful to see that sponsorship money is pouring into podcast events, but that money seems to be going purely into the venues that are rented for those events to occur. The people who are providing the content are not seeing any of that. That's not okay for us.
To be absolutely clear, what we're talking about here are events which are sponsored by Audible and events which are sponsored
and all of the other big providers, yeah.
And Spotify can back $100 million up to literally a sentient piece of bison jerky with the worst fucking opinions on earth. but they can't pay for attendees to show up to a podcast event that they've put together, but they will happily siphon off their creativity and reputation to patch the holes in their own justifiably tattered and mostly ruined defenses.
Which is a long way of saying that if Acast and Spotify in particular is sponsoring event and not paying volunteers, then I'm not gonna do anything to feather Joe Rogan's nest. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, just before this turns into and another thing,
Thank you very much. As we are having a little bit of events, like I said, it's been a long and stressful week, and it's only Wednesday.
but before we get into that, Marguerite nailed it perfectly when she said we're very lucky to operate from a position of privilege, and we are. There are a lot of folks who have very good reasons to show up at these events and quite happily take part and support them. And several of them are very good friends of ours,
and that's fine.
We back them to the hilt. But
yeah, those are decisions they make at their comfort level, at their point in their career, in their physical proximity. I mean, if you live in London, getting to London events is probably a different out-of-pocket cost than it is to somebody like us who lives outside of London and would only be going to London for an event, etc., etc.
And also, fun fact, if you live outside London, pretty much everyone in London in a professional capacity treats you like you're either dead or part of a myth.
Or on the moon.
The M25 is the sum totality of the UK, and everything past it is where it be dragons.
I mean, and to be fair, there are, and we do, have regular chats with the dragons, but they're much more interesting than,
I am tremendously heartened, by the way, just tangenting for a moment.
Don't mind us.
I am tremendously...
And more than England. That's the important thing. I'm going to jump on this point for Andwich, if you don't mind, really quick. There's a lot more to the UK than just London, okay? There's huge quantities of culture and experience outside of London, and it gets really, really frustrating how much of everything in this country is London-centric. It's publishing, it's podcasting, it's the assumption that somehow the M25 is a magical circle that you have to be within in order to produce good content, and that perception is bollocks. Absolutely inaccurate.
I mean, I'll be absolutely honest, because it's been a stressful.
The fact that they call it the North, Pezzy.
The North.
The North. Yes. As someone who lives in the same state as New York, yep, I know lots of upper state New York people, but they have to be called upper state New York people
because
you
New York takes
it. Yeah. It's only a city, right? Exactly.
And like I say, it's been a long week, so my filters are perhaps a little bit more diluted than usual. But I have a very, very clear group of acquaintances who would probably count me as a friend, who forget I exist until they need something, and they are all based in publishing in London.
Yeah. Outside the M25 is the North. Pezzy, I think Cornwall would have a slight issue with some of that perception, but you're not wrong. You're very much not wrong. Wow, we got a little ranty.
Well, I mean, it's been a while.
We do 4 things on this stream, and one of them tonight is
we do 4 things
purging.
On the stream, and the first one is another fucking thing.
Right? We should do I have a favorite. I have a lot of favorite TikTokers, but I have one particular TikToker who started this trend. She talks about working in a nursery, and every once in a while she would say, "I have to warn you though, today's a purge day, so I'm allowed to speak my truth when I talk to you, rich parent whose child I'm in care of." And I like the idea of saying today is a purge day and just being like, "And another thing." That would be amazing.
Rebecca, so you're probably timing this really nicely, because there's a lot of
little
movement
rant
towards
as a treat,
places like Manchester and to a lesser extent Cardiff for production and creative hubs. Publishing is largely going to be in London for a little bit, but there are moves to deal with that, and I'm really happy to see it.
Glasgow is pushing its help really, really hard to be a cultural hub, and that's a good one. Manchester's the exact same way. Yeah. I am very ridiculously fond of Liverpool, and as soon as our car gets here, I think we're going to have another Liverpool weekend, because I really like it up there.
To the extent that we've talked about going back to the same hotel and having breakfast at the same place across the street.
Yeah, we liked it a lot. It was great. Oh, to have a purge day. The member president of the association I work with was being not nice, and being able to yell at her would be a dream, right? Every profession deserves a purge day every once in a while.
Yeah, yes, Manchester's nice. It's good.
Manchester is very lovely, and the creative hubs need to differentiate, because you cannot support an ecosystem of, oh, well, you're an artist. You don't want filthy lucre. Well, yes, but I also want to be able to like physically travel to the things that I need to go to do my art, and you've priced me out of them, you know? Exactly. I it's not just us. I know and used to work with lawyers, partners in private practice, people who make bank. And he lived in Manchester. He had a bed sit in London, and he came in Monday morning and he worked, and then he went home Friday afternoon because the price differential meant that his family was able to have a much different standard of living in Manchester than they would if they had lived in London.
There's at least one guy who commutes to London from Portugal.
Oh, I read about this. He like takes flights and stuff, and it's still cheaper.
Yep.
Which is just, I mean, ecologically horrific, but financially cheaper than you. Yeah. No.
Also baller as hell, to be fair, you know.
I had a teacher, a professor at college who, same way, lived in Utah, would come into California, teach for a week or two, and then go home again. But yeah. Weird times, man, where you could do these sorts of things. If we would just hurry up and freaking invent teleporters, we wouldn't have to deal with any of this. Just solar-powered teleportation. That's all I'm asking.
Oh, to live to see a post-scarcity economy. Wouldn't that be great?
Oh, I know. I know. Thank you, Mr. Motorcycle, who went by outside.
Super great.
Loud.
Really impressed by
Really,
your bike. It
really,
is so cool. Thanks, man.
Really appreciate that. All right. Hey, honey, how many things do we do in this?
Well, after we've vented, we do three things. The first one is an opening monologue. This is a chance for you to get situated, put the laser pointer on the Roomba so the cat and the Roomba can resume their war.
Have you seen that comic? There is an adorable online little comic on Twitter about a cat and a Roomba. And like at one point the cat knocks the jar of coffee beans off, and the Zumba gets a caffeine buzz from zipping up the coffee beans, and it's really cute. I have to find it. You keep talking.
I will do. So yeah, opening monologue actually gives you a chance to get situated, get hydrated, get any food you might need, get any medication you might need, ensure that any dependents or partners you have are amused or aware that you are about to be amused for a couple of hours.
Or join you in the amusement.
Or join you. All are welcome here.
I mean, we are frequently amusing. We're just slightly ranty today as opposed to amusing. So, there are a lot of results for Cat and Roomba. I'm just gonna say. I'm gonna have a lot to scroll through here.
I'm so glad the fourth episode of Ms. Marvel's good. We're only up to episode 3 and I'm really digging it.
Yeah.
That kid is one of the most instantly, fundamentally endearing protagonists I've ever encountered.
I just love that character so much. Cameron Hurley is watching the new season of Fort Salem, and we don't have it, and I am jealous. And I'm gonna have to mute this hashtag, and I'm very sad now because I freaking love that show. Anyway. I will find it. I will find the adorable Zumba kitty at some point.
So yeah,
in the
opening
future.
monologue, then we're doing a short story. We're on a big M.R. James kick at the moment. For those of you who are new, M.R. James is one of the greatest writers of supernatural fiction in the Western world for the last 200-300 years. James is notable for two things: his tremendous hatred of golf, and the fact that we are reasonably certain that he never once had a good holiday in his life.
I ran out of time. I was going to try and build us a bingo card for tonight. I think we should develop a stream M.R. James bingo card.
Every M.R. James story we've done so far has been younger man in kind of pseudo-civil servant position is invited over for a weekend by older gentleman who is single, and there's
wealthy.
Perhaps some subtext, and older gentleman literally goes, "Here, look at this. It's weird and possibly deadly." And the younger man goes, "Gosh, really?" And finds out, "I say, this is weird and possibly deadly." And the older man goes, "Yes, it is. You, Butler, Butlerson, come here." And Butlerson's like, "Yes, my lord. What are these binoculars made of?" "Death." "All right, should probably destroy them."
Pezzy says, "Is wrapping a turkey Twizzler in a slice of cheese enough to summon Jamie Oliver in my kitchen? I'm concerned it might
If
be.
it is, kick him in the nuts.
I've got a jar of pasta salad in the fridge. I'll throw it in him, and you can run. It's fine. We'll be good."
Older gentleman invites him to golf as well, sexy. Yes.
Basically. Yes. Fun things to do after work list, Marguerite. You will get a bingo card. I would love to have an MR James bingo card. I think we have ample fuel for an
we
MR
do.
James.
We do. Basically, all his stories can be perfectly summed up, and the response to them can all be perfectly summed up by our very good friend Premi Mohammed, who has talked in detail about how she will not read MR James anymore because she always has this response. First page. Oh, well, this isn't spooky at all. Last page. Okay, what the fuck?
Right? Very much so. Classic MR James. Right, should we do something, or attempt to do something lighthearted and opening monologue E?
That sounds like a cue for a
Yes.
song. Da 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 da.
All right, here we go.
We're not going to do that. We like you people.
No. I'm kind of disappointed, but we'll get there. Don't worry about it. All right.
It should also be pointed out that there is a new Tom Hardy song, and if you ever wanted to know what the inside of my brain looks like or sounds like,
I'm sorry.
it's that.
Are we going on a tangent?
Yes, we are.
You can't see it right now, but I just put little tangent lights on the screen because I built them. Because we have a new emoji for every time we go on a tangent, which is going to rapidly become the most used emoji in our entire collection. All right, you may now go on your tangent about Tom Hardy.
Tom
About how
Hardy,
he's
for those
awesome.
of you who don't know, is an Australian musician and I'm pretty certain some kind of Loki variant.
Yes, I think he is an Antipodian Loki variant for sure.
And he puts up a song about once every 10 days or so, and this week's is, I'm very ill. I watched all 6 Jurassic Park movies.
And then I invented the next 6.
Here's what happens. There is a moment, a minute in, where the chorus is just him going la 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 la, which I listened to this for the first time last night and immediately went, oh god, that's what the inside of my head sounds like.
Yes, between John Oliver and Tom Hardy, they kind of got you surrounded, and they need to get their cameras out of our house.
I'm moderately certain John Oliver is my final form.
Yes, he will evolve into even more scared, sarcastic British man. Well, you're not scared, so the fear would be an evolution, I think.
Alistair Chew, evolve into Oliver Con. You know.
Okay, chat. I have a mighty artistic need. Oh yes, that needs to happen. All right, quick, read about Crusade Kings.
Very well. So like I say, what?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Holy fucking shit, there's a dino.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
it's better because the ending refrain of every one of the reviews for the 6 movies is "Let's not go back to Dinosaur Island," and then they go back to Dinosaur Island. Yes, it's very good. Should I? I don't know if Tom Hardy's on Twitter. I don't want to open TikTok while we're streaming.
That's fine. We'll drop it in the show notes or something.
I got it.
There you
Hold
go.
on.
So yeah, our opening monologue, as is almost always the case, comes to us from our house band, Mr. Nate Crowley, fiercely gifted author, fantastic, just all around human. And this week, he has been saving the world. I mean this very sincerely. For those of you who are not familiar with it, there is an AI learning system called DALL-E, which I always hear as DALL-E, which is apparently just...
Which is going to be some sort of horrific AI data farming monstrosity.
Which has just rebranded as Crayon, and it's basically a search box, and you type any term you would care to type into it, and it will generate AI-based art based on those terms.
Art.
Nate got his hands on this.
Yes. Okay. Here, we will start putting links in the chat. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm so sorry.
Of course, the first one I saw was an enormous statue of Jason Statham. Of course it was.
This is Bane playing the tuba.
My personal favorite might be, and this is a direct quote, Batman doing a shit in a cornfield. It shouldn't be funny. It is.
Rambo in a tutu? Oh god. Please don't die. Please don't. Oh. Nate, why? Batman in a field. Jason Statham as Captain Planet. is a new and uncomfortable hell.
It's
Surgeons operating on a roast turkey.
it's
Oh God, Mr. Blobby in Deadwood, I'm scrolling.
yeah, it's like he just left the tab open and has random phrases bubble to the top of his brain, as they do with folks from here like Nate and myself.
Clown Mecca.
He's just put them into crayon and
Oh my
posted the art.
gosh. I just... Let's read his words and not look upon
Yeah,
his
that sounds
deeds in
great, lest it be
despair.
witnessed by
Shall we?
lest it witness unto us. This is from Rock Paper Shotgun, which is arguably the best video gaming site on the internet. I know that's a very low bar, but they do actually do journalism. And this is called "How Fast Can You Die in Crusader Kings 3? You come at the Pope, you best not miss."
Yesterday, I dived into the magical world of themed Crusader Kings 3 playthroughs, with this sobering exploration of what a man's life might look like if he cared for nothing except banging giants. I do believe we've read that one. I may return to my nightmare reimagining of C12th century Estonia at some point, but not today. You see, today there's science to be done.
CK3 is emphatically all about planning for the long game.
Yes, Nate is a black library author.
The fact you play as the successive inheritors of a medieval throne means you're always thinking centuries ahead. Even within the lives of your individual rulers, you'll almost always want to ensure a long and healthy reign, as that will give you more time to work on goals that benefit both your current king and their descendants. Indeed, even Angiamo the Giant Shagger cultivated a secondary interest in medicine, so that he could extend his Titan-topping career well into his 70s.
You just completely no-selled the word giant shagger. Well done.
Thank you.
make
But
it
what
to me.
happens if you play with utter contempt for longevity? Playing as recklessly as possible, I wanted to find out just how quickly a king can get themselves killed.
I figured it'd be cheating to find a monarch already on the brink of death, so I went with one of the classics. Meet King Sancho the Strong of Castile. King Sancho is one of the approximately 7,000 royal brothers who tend to spend the back end of the 11th century brooding each other to shreds over northern Spain. He's wrathful, zealous, and looks like the man who would be on the DVD cover of a Poundland version of 300. He is perfect for this mission.
AKA Nigel Deathwish.
Sancho is a man of action, and so he goes in swinging. On the second day of the game, 15th September 1066, he declares war on Alfonso, one of his many kingly brothers, rounds up every able-bodied man in Castile, and leads them personally into hostile territory. This is not a campaign. He has not even stopped to think about what he hopes to achieve or what odds are stacked against him. It's just an act of raw aggression, like a man charging into a pub toilet with a hammer.
Such is the rage of strong Sancho that he can't even contain himself until battle is joined. During the march, he gets on his wooden Nokia and barks a series of threats at clergymen until someone imprisons the Archbishop of Castile. He is immediately proclaimed a sinner across Christendom.
Oh dear.
It is then that the fight starts. Alfonso's army is twice the size of Sancho's, and his men are being butchered thanks to their commander's decision to attack a mountain pass held by the enemy. But that's fine by Sancho. In fact, even as he swings his sword at the face of cudgel-bearing yokels in a ravine knee-deep in gore, he decides he's going to get married.
Wow.
Who knows how he accesses medieval LinkedIn during this pitch battle, but he does, and selects a sadistic lunatic peasant from the depths of France as his bride.
A match made in, I don't know, probably a microwave?
You
Oh,
go.
yeah. Okay. The impending nuptials please him, and so after ramming his blade into yet another hapless foe, he decides to celebrate by incarcerating more high-ranking clergy for no reason. Have they got a new fucking archbishop installed yet? He snarls into his oaken mobile phone to terrify dissent from the other end of the line. I've decided Sancho talks like a Guy Ritchie film character. Good, concludes the blood-soaked monarch. Imprison the word that starts with C and ends with T. Then he eats the phone.
The battle is, of course, a brutal defeat, but that's no real hassle. Sancho declares 2 more wars while leading the bedraggled wounded home just for a laugh, and then goes to the cathedral to do more imprisoning. Barely can an archbishop touch arse to throne without Sancho's manacles crashing down on their holy wrists, and soon the dungeons are heaving with theologians. But this bores Sancho, so he decides to murder the mayor of his capital city instead.
To Sancho's annoyance, the mayor dies before he can get even near him with the dagger. The king wonders if he has perhaps become so angry that he can kill people just by thinking about it. But then his hopes are dashed. When he goes to hurl a lager can out of his palace window, that's lager can out of his palace window, he notices that the armies of two of his brothers, plus a peasant revolt and a Saracen holy war to boot, are ransacking the lands of Castile, and the mayor he'd hoped to shank has perished in one of the many horrifying sieges. Fucking lovely, he growls through a belch, then staggers off to find someone else to upset.
As his kingdom goes up in flames beyond the city walls, Sancho amuses himself by appointing a clutch of utter dunces as the council in charge of overseeing his realm, then attempts some random assassinations of courtiers. But every single time the war claims his victims before he can, and he is left disappointed. Amazingly, at one point, he is prompted to investigate the attempted murders that he himself is committing. Case closed, lol. Is me, he says, winking vilely at camera.
Sancho was just having a think about assassinating his wife, since she's one of the few people in Castile who isn't halfway through dying in battle already, when a crowd of soldiers led by his brother Alfonso himself bursts through the palace gates. They have taken the city, and Alfonso was overcome with relief as his men hurl Sancho into a prison.
The rival king begs Sancho with tears in his eyes to stop the madness and get back to the usual cloak and dagger throne jostling that Spain is used to. He says that if Sancho will only surrender and change his ways, he can have all his lands back, have another chance at the regal life. Somewhat over a barrel, the rogue monarch sullenly agrees to Alfonso's terms.
But the second he's out of jail, Sancho looks his brother right in the eye and holds his stare as he pulls out his phone, dials the Pope's number with fingers like a pack of gone-off Richmonds, and holds the block of wood to his ear. His Holiness, says a beatific voice in the other end. Your fucking dad, he hisses, and gurns unrepentantly right in his sobbing brother's face.
At this point, we have a map, by the way, which says more like his full of holesiness. At this point, Sancho is declared too much of an international disgrace to even be allowed to start wars anymore, limiting his options for antagonizing people somewhat. But there's plenty of other fun to be had. He hires an incredibly evil woman, who also hates him, to be his spy master, and sends her texts daily, daring her to assassinate him. Then, excited for his upcoming trip to Italy, Sancho remembers all the former archbishops festering in his dungeons, and decides to get in the Pope-slaying mood by torturing them all to death. After that, just in case anyone in the church still likes him, he converts to the Lollard heresy because its name contains the word lol. Amazingly, several high-ranking nobles decide his example is worth following, and they too convert.
Somewhere among all this, Sancho's nightmare wife bears him a son. But Sancho cares not for life, only for death, and after naming his son the Living Threat, promptly forgets about him. The pitter-patter of tiny fists, says the photo caption.
As the big day, for killing the Pope, approaches, Sancho unexpectedly makes the choice to scout out the farmland where the fatal ambush is being planned himself, rather than sending henchmen. Needless to say, he gets horribly lost and finds this hugely stressful. Somewhat awkwardly, he is also discovered in the process by the Pope. Just passing through, growls the dishevelled monarch with a knife between his teeth to his very disconcerted holiness, and is somehow allowed to walk free.
What?
Back home, he finds he now also has a daughter who he names Guns, and also forgets.
Long live the Living Threat. But the fun can't last forever. Before he he can even have his shot at the Pope, King Sancho is deposed, but by what I can only assume is a coalition of every surviving human in Castile after a reign that has lasted 6 years. He cedes both his kingdom and player agency to his 3-year-old son, the living threat.
It's over for Sancho. But not in the mortal sense. So the challenge is still on. Sancho the Strong must die. Playing as young TLT then, I pretty much let my kingdom run on autopilot, speeding through the years until I become an adult and can finally hunt down my monstrous father. The young threat keeps an eye on Sancho the whole time. He lives as a sort of rage-fueled vagrant for a number of years, waking up roaring in haystacks and spending the day having shouting matches with imaginary popes. But by the time the living threat turns 16, having become personality-wise even more of a devil than his father was, the deposed monarch has rejoined civilization and is scuttling around his brother Alfonso's court like a rat with a sword.
Now come of age, the living threat finally takes his chance to make good on the name his father had unthinkingly given him. Because of the sheer number of people who despised Sancho, would-be murderers are queuing up at TLT's palace gates the second the scheme begins. And as far as I can tell, it takes barely minutes for the former monarch to be hunted down and, I imagine, drowned in spiders. It is the 25th of March, 1088 AD, meaning Sancho survived 22 years of my best efforts to kill him. But at last, the juggernaut is stilled, and Spain breathes a heavy sigh of relief.
Nate Crowley, my friends.
I want to play this game now!
That actually sounds really fun, doesn't it?
Brat with a sword is an excellent gender, I must admit.
Rat with a sword.
Rat with a sword. Yes, so Nate has done all sorts of things, including I think he wrote a orc book for Black Library.
He's written, I believe, 2 orc books, 2
Who
Necron...
was surprised that Nate Crowley is writing books about orcs?
2 Necron books, which are apparently very, very good. And various other bits and pieces. He's also responsible for the Death and Life of Schneider Rack, which is one of those series which is several years early. If I tell you, it opens with the hero being washed up extremely dead on a colossal trawler on the outskirts of the waters of the fantasy city he lives in, and it turns into zombie union rights. Then I am really scratching the surface of just how good this stuff is.
That sounds very good.
Oh, the Death and Life of Schneider Rack's amazing. Basically, go get everything he writes. He writes good. I mean, he writes real good.
He writes good. He writes real good. Exactly. Very exciting. Thank you.
My apologies. I probably should have taken my headphones off to do that.
That's okay. As long as you're good.
Right, so that was our opening monologue. Shall we do Anne's story?
Is that or we're going to go on another tangent, so yes. Right. Spooky stories. I don't know much about this one.
Whom he names Guns.
Right. Right. By the way, I still want to see 6. I don't know if it's on stages here anymore. I think we missed it.
It's touring, I think.
I will put it on the list of things to investigate in my copious spare time, which is to say, how's 2025 sound?
Just
pencil it in, right?
Right? Words. Yeah.
It is touring. Okay, great. Thank you very much. I don't think we're going anywhere where there's going to be touring. We have a vacation coming up at the end of September and in October, and I'm very much hoping it goes forward because it involves going to Italy and doing nothing in lovely cities for an extended, relaxing period of time. And I don't want to have to schedule anything else, except TikTok got me. Apparently, there's a very nice
this is so cool.
spa in Milan that has like a room where they have a bunch of different like themed rooms and one where you like sit on loungers in a pool. I'm like, yes, that is perfect. And that the theme of the rooms is different types of weather. And one of them is like a storm. You can sit in a lightning storm with like all the screens projecting like ocean waves and crashing and storms and clouds and lightning. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to do that so much. That sounds really fun. Oh, the TikToks I would record of Mr. Lucas in such a room.
Right.
I don't remember the name of it. Go to Bologna. They have a food theme park with rides. We're going to Florence, but not Bologna.
Honey, would now be a good time to point out that Six is in Nottingham between the 26th and the 31st of July.
I'm very busy. Can you just send me, DM me that link and I'll look it up later.
Okay.
My car won't be here by then.
Do a road trip.
Do a road trip, exactly. But yes, apparently the spa has all these different themed like storm rooms, and I'm like, I must go there. I must go there and sit in the waters and be stormed at. This sounds amazing. Road trip. Yes, very much a road trip. Love a road trip. Soon there will be all the road trips. What do we know about Lost Hearts other than it's by M.R. James? So we can make a couple of predictions.
I'm guessing there's going to be a young man in it who might make an unfortunate choice, but he'll be okay.
Oh, okay.
It was filmed in 1973. Oh, yeah. Young man sent to live with strange, much older cousin. Yeah.
Okay. Well, get out your M.R. James bingo cards, or be prepared to start creating your M.R. James bingo cards.
Oh, dude, there's a version read by Peter Cushing, so obviously that was a fantastic thing to discover just before I'm about to sight read it. Cool. Let's do the story.
Shall we talk about the content warnings first? Hang on just a second. Let me switch screens. Right, there you are. All present and correct. Content warnings for The Lost Hearts are death and dying, horror themes, socio-political things, i.e. it was written by somebody with Victorian sensibilities, and violence. As always, you can find a detailed list of content warnings which may contain spoilers at the link in the chat.
It's also possibly worth pointing out that a general banner content warning for stories like this is M.R. James. Perhaps also, holidays are bullshit.
Right? Lost Hearts by M.R. James, aka holidays are bullshit.
Okay, here we go.
Alrighty, hold on. I need the buttons because I have a feeling there's going to be very, 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 very many accents involved. Alright, whenever you're ready.
Oh, wow. Lost Hearts by M.R. James. Read by Alasdair Stewart. It was, as far as I can ascertain, in September of the year 1811 that a post-chaise drew up before the door of Aswarby Hall in the heart of Lincolnshire. The little boy, who was the only passenger in the chaise and who jumped out as soon as it had stopped, looked about him with the keenest curiosity during the short interval that elapsed between the ringing of the bell and the opening of the hall door. He saw a tall, square, red brick house built in the reign of Anne. A stone-pillared porch had been added in the purer, classical style of 1790. The windows of the house were many, tall and narrow, with small panes and thick, white woodwork. A pediment, pierced with a round window, crowned the front. There were wings to right and left, connected by curious glazed galleries supported by colonnades with the central block. These wings plainly contained the stables and offices of the house. Each was cemented by an ornamental cupola with a gilded vane.
I think we might have to add a new thing that apparently James has developed something for architecture with all of that description.
Our hero arrives at this mysterious house that's really very lovely. Let me tell you about it.
Yeah, fine, totally fine.
But what about the golf? Sit down. An evening light shone on the building, making the window panes glow like so many fires. Away from the hall in front stretched a flat park studded with oaks, fringed with firs, which stood out against the sky. The clock in the church tower, buried in trees on the edge of the park, only its golden weathercock catching the light, was striking 6, and the sound came gently beating down the wind. It was, altogether, a pleasant impression, though tinged with the sort of melancholy appropriate to an evening in early autumn that was conveyed to the mind of the boy who was standing in the porch, waiting for the door to open to him. He had just come from Warwickshire, and some 6 months ago had been left an orphan. Now, owing to the generous and unexpected offer of his elderly cousin, Mr. Abney, he had come to live at Aswarby. The offer was unexpected because all who knew anything of Mr. Abney looked upon him as a somewhat austere recluse, into whose steady-going household the advent of a small boy would import a new and it seemed incongruous element. The truth is that very little was known of Mr. Abney's pursuits or temper. The professor of Greek at Cambridge had been heard to say that no one knew more of the religious beliefs of the later pagans than did the owner of Aswarby. Certainly his library contained all the then available books bearing on the mysteries, the Orphic poems, the worship of Mithras, and the Neoplatonists. In the marble-paved hall stood a fine group of Mithras slaying a bull, which had been imported from the Levant at great expense by the owner.
Imported.
Imported. Nicked. He had contributed a description of it to The Gentleman's Magazine, and he had written a remarkable series of articles in The Critical Museum on the superstitions of the Romans of the Lower Empire. He was looked upon, in fine, as a man wrapped up in his books, and it was a matter of great surprise among his neighbours that he should ever have heard of his orphan cousin, Stephen Elliott, much more that he should have volunteered to make him an inmate of Aswarby Hall.
Okay, a man who studies classics does not get to take guardianship of a young single child. No.
He knows a lot about Mithraists. Didn't they do human sacrifice? Bulls. Let's move on. I don't know if the Mithraists did actually do human sacrifice. I think I know a couple of Mithraists. It's actually quite a nice faith. Whatever may have been expected by his neighbours, it is certain that Mr. Abney, the tall, the thin, the austere, and now I understand why Cushing read this one, seemed inclined to give his young cousin a kindly reception. The moment the front door was opened, he darted out of his study, rubbing his hands with delight. "How are you, my boy? How are you? How old are you?" said he. "That is, you are not too much tired, I hope, by your journey to eat your supper?" "No, thank you, sir," said Master Elliot. "I am pretty well." "That's a good lad," said Mr. Abney. "And how old are you, my boy?" It seemed a little odd that he should have asked the question twice in the first 2 minutes of their acquaintance. "I'm 12 years old next birthday, sir," said Stephen. "And when is your birthday, my dear boy?" 11th of September, eh? That's very well. Nearly a year hence, isn't it? I like I like to get these things down in my book. Sure it's 12th? Certain? Yes, quite sure, sir. Well, well, take him to Mrs. Bunch's room, Parks, and let him have his tea, supper, whatever it is. "Yes, sir," answered the staid Parks, and conducted Stephen to the lower regions. Mrs. Bunch was the most... Say what? Sus.
Sauce.
"How old are you, my boy?" How tender. I mean old. Mrs. Bunch was the most comfortable and human person whom Stephen had as yet met in Aswarby. She made him completely at home. They were great friends in a quarter of an hour, and great friends they remained. Mrs. Bunch had been born in the neighbourhood some 55 years before the date of Stephen's arrival, and her residence at the Hall was of 20 years' standing. Consequently, if anyone knew the ins and outs of the house and the district, Mrs. Bunch knew them, and she was by no means disinclined to communicate her information.
How delicately put.
Certainly there were plenty of things about the Hall and the Hall gardens which Stephen, who was of an adventurous and inquiring turn, was anxious to have explained to him. Who built the temple at the end of the Laurel Walk? Who was the old man whose picture hung on the staircase, sitting at a table with a skull under his hand? These and many similar points were cleared up by the resources of Mrs. Bunch's powerful intellect. There were others, however, of which the explanations furnished were less satisfactory. One November evening, Stephen was sitting by the fire in the housekeeper's room, reflecting on his surroundings.
Sorry for the interruption, everybody. Apparently, Toretto and his group are on motorcycles outside.
It's just Mrs. Bunch coming home. I was just burning some rubber, sir. It's racing for pink slips. There'll be a new car outside in the morning.
Toretto.
I see I'm not the only one from a family of eccentrics.
Family of eccentrics. Anyway.
One November evening, Stephen was sitting by the fire in the housekeeper's room, reflecting on his surroundings. Is Mr. Abney a good man? Will he go to heaven? He suddenly asked, with the peculiar confidence which children possess in the ability of their elders to settle these questions, the decision of which is believed to be reserved for other tribunals.
Oh boy.
Good. Oh, bless the child, said Mrs. Bunch. Master's as kind a soul as ever I've seen. Didn't I never tell you of the little boy as he took in out of the street, as you may say, this 7 years back? And the little girl 2 years after I first come here?
Oh no! First
No,
precedent!
Mrs. Bunch, you did not. The immortal words of my patron saint. Go on. No, do tell me all about them, Mrs. Bunch. Now, this minute. Well, said Mrs. Bunch, the little girl I don't seem to recollect so much about. I know Master brought her back with him from his walk one day and gave orders to Mrs. Ellis, as was housekeeper then, so she should be took every care with. And the poor child had no one belonging to her. She tell me so her own self, and here she lived with us a matter of 3 weeks it might be, and then whether she was something of a gypsy in her blood or what not, I don't know. But one morning she out of her bed afore any of us had opened an eye, and neither track nor yet trace of her have I set eyes on since. Master was wonderful put about, and had all the ponds dragged. But it's my belief that she had away by them gypsies, for there was singing round the house for as much as an hour the night she went. And Parks, he declares he heard them a-calling in the woods all that afternoon. Dear, dear, a odd child she was, so silent in her ways, but I was wonderful taken up with her, so domesticated she was, surprising. Okay,
Yeah.
good, thanks, Mrs. Bunch.
Yeah, thanks for that fantastic racism. Moving right on.
Sometimes she wore pants, understood what the war closet was and everything. It's very difficult not to read this, by the way, with Stephen eyes growing progressively wider going, really? Interesting. Go on, going, how can I fashion a rudimentary shank? I am
How
12.
can I? I'm just gonna go for a brisk walk. I'll be right back. And he was never seen again.
And what about the little boy? Said Stephen. Oh, that poor boy, sighed Mrs. Bunch. He were a foreigner, Giovanni he called himself, and he came a tweaking his hurdy-gurdy round and about the drive one winter day, and Master had him in that minute, and asked all about where he come from, and how old he was, and how he made his way, and where was his relatives, and all as kind as art could wish. But it went the same way with him. They're a unruly lot, them foreign nations, I do suppose, and he was off one morning just the same as the girl. Why he went and what he done was our question for as much as a year after, for he never took his hurdy-gurdy, and there it lays on the shelf.
O.M.G.
I really hope this kid's paying attention, and I really hope this kid is looking for the door.
Dear child, you are now the protagonist of a horror novel. Please pay attention to the clues.
The remainder of the evening was spent by Stephen in miscellaneous cross-examination of Mrs. Bunch and in efforts to extract a tune from the hurdy-gurdy. As you were, Stephen's a kid. That night he had a curious dream.
Okay, that's another square on the bingo card.
At the end of the passage at the top of the house, in which his bedroom was situated, there was an old, disused bathroom. It was kept locked, but the upper half of the door was glazed, and since the muslin curtains which used to hang there had long been gone, you could look in and see the lead-lined bath affixed to the wall on the right hand, with its head towards the window. On the night of which I am speaking, Stephen Elliott found himself, as he thought, looking through the glazed door. The moon was shining through the window, and he was gazing at a figure which lay in the bath. His description of what he saw reminds me of what I once beheld myself in the famous vaults of St. Michan's Church in Dublin, which possess the horrid property of preserving corpses from decay for centuries. A figure inexpressibly thin and pathetic, of a dusty leaden colour, enveloped in a shroud-like garment, the thin lips crooked into a faint and dreadful smile, the hands pressed tightly over the region of the heart. As he looked upon it, a distant, almost inaudible moan seemed to issue from its lips. The arms began to stir.
Nope.
The terror of the sight forced Stephen backwards, and he awoke to the fact that he was indeed standing on the cold boarded floor of the passage, in the full light of the moon. With a courage which I do not think can be common among boys of his age, he went to the door of the bathroom to ascertain if the figure of his dream were really there. It was not. So he went back to bed.
And did not sleep a wink.
Mrs. Bunch was much impressed next morning by his story, and went so far as to replace the muslin curtain over the glazed door of the bathroom. Mr. Abney, moreover, to whom he confided his experiences at breakfast, was greatly interested, and made notes of the matter in what he called his book. Spring equinox was approaching, as Mr. Abney frequently reminded his cousin, adding that this had always been considered by the ancients to be a critical time for the young. That Stephen would do well to take care of himself, and to shut his bedroom window at night, and that Censorinus had some valuable remarks on the subject. Two incidents that occurred about this time made an impression upon Stephen's mind.
Okay, first of all, who recommends a classicist philosopher to a 12-year-old boy for reading?
How long have you lived in this country again?
Oh my god.
You know what we really need? Shillings. Fuck off. Rationing. No.
No.
Isn't it nice remembering? The first was after an unusually uneasy and oppressive night that he had passed, though he could not recall any particular dream that he had had. The following evening, Mrs. Bunch was occupying herself in mending his nightgown. "Gracious me, Master Stephen!" she broke forth rather irritably. "How do you manage to tear your nightdress all to flinders this way? Look here, sir, what trouble you do give to poor servants that have to darn and mend around you. Darn and mend after you, pardon me." There was indeed a most destructive and apparently wanton series of slits, or scorings, in the garment, which would undoubtedly require a skilful needle to make good.
I'm sorry, wanton slits?
I feel like that's a word that hasn't aged well. They were confined to the left side of the chest, long parallel slits, about 6 inches in length, some of them not quite piercing the texture of the linen. Stephen could only express his entire ignorance of their origin. He was sure they hadn't been there the night before. "But," he said, "Mrs. Bunch, they are just the same as the scratches on the outside of my bedroom door, and I'm sure I never had anything to do with making them."
I'm sorry, what?
"Okay, good, good, good." Mrs. Bunch gazed at him open-mouthed, then snatched up a candle, departed hastily from the room, and was heard making her way upstairs. In a few minutes, she came down. "Well," she said, "Master Stephen, it's a funny thing, to me, how their marks and scratches can have come there. They're too high up for any cat or dog to have made 'em, much less a rat, for all the world like a Chinaman's fingernails, as my uncle in the tea trade used to tell us of when we was girls together. I wouldn't say nothing to master, not if I was you, Master Stephen. My dear, just turn the key of the door when you go to your bed. I always do, Mrs. Bunch, as soon as I've said my prayers. Ah, that's a good child. Always say your prayers and then no one can hurt you.
Let's
And
see
then
how
no
well.
one can hurt you.
Yeah, we'll see how that turns out.
Herewith, Mrs. Bunch addressed herself to mending the injured nightgown, with intervals of meditation until bedtime. It was on a Friday night in March, 1812. On the following evening, the usual duet of Stephen and Mrs. Bunch was augmented by the sudden arrival of Mr. Parkes, the butler, who as a rule kept rather to himself in his own pantry. He did not see that Stephen was there. He was, moreover, flustered, and less slow of speech than was his wont. "Master may get up his own wine if he likes of an evening," was his first remark. "Either I do it in the daytime or not at all, Mrs. Bunch. Don't know what it may be. Very like it's the rats, or the wind got into the cellars, but I'm not so young as I was, and I can't go through with it as I have done." "Well, Mr. Parkes, you know it is a surprising place for the rats, is the all." "I'm not denying that, Mrs. Bunch, and to be sure, many a time I've heard the tale from the men in the shipyards about the rat that could speak. Never laid no confidence in that before, but tonight, if I'd demeaned myself to lay my ear to the door of the further bin, could pretty much have heard what they were saying. Oh, there, Mr. Parkes, I've no patience with your fancies. Rats talking in the wine cellar, indeed. Well, Mrs. Bunch, I've no wish to argue with you. All I say is this: if you choose to go to the far bin and lay your ear to the door, you may prove my words this minute." "What nonsense you do talk, Mr. Parkes. Not fit for children to listen to. I'm getting on my bike and fucking off." "It's alright, take your time." "Thanks."
It's the motorcycles are just doing their thing outside. They're taking laps.
"What nonsense you do talk, Mr. Parkes. Not fit for children to listen to. Why, you'll be frightening Master Stephen there out of his wits." "What? Master Stephen?" said Parkes, awaking to the consciousness of the boy's presence. "Huh. Master Stephen knows full well enough when I'm a-playing a joke with you, Mrs. Bunch." I choose to believe he's going at that point. In fact, Master Stephen knew much too well to suppose that Mrs. Parkes had in the first instance intended a joke. He was interested, and not altogether pleasantly, in the situation, but all his questions were unsuccessful in inducing the butler to give it.
Induce the buffer.
Induce the buffer.
Hack the node. Destroy the host.
Were unsuccessful in inducing the butler to give any more detailed account of his experiences in the wine cellar.
Okay, so here's my question. Is this a "Gee, little Timmy, don't go listen to the rats in the cellar," or is this a "Oh shit, the kid's here"? Let's read on. I'm planting a flag on this for later.
Yeah, this is getting pretty sacrificey, isn't it?
Getting? Has gotten?
Will have
He's the third kid! Good grief!
The ritual is almost complete.
Gosh, now.
Well, I'm just moving stuff around on my screen. There we are.
Line 45.
Thank you. We have now arrived at March 24th, 1812.
Equinox!
It was a day of curious experiences for Stephen. A windy, noisy day, which filled the house and the gardens with a restless impression. As Stephen stood by the fence of the grounds and looked out into the park, he felt as if an endless procession of unseen people were sweeping past him on the wind, borne on resistlessly and aimlessly, vainly striving to stop themselves. Catch at something, at anything, that might arrest their flight and bring them once again into contact with the living world of which they had formed a part. After luncheon...
House is haunted!
You're back early. House is haunted. What? House is haunted. After lunch that day, Mr. Abney said, Stephen, my boy, do you think you could manage to come to me tonight, as late as 11 o'clock in my study? I shall be busy until that time, and I wish to show you something connected with your future life, which it is most important that you should know. You are not to mention this matter to Mrs. Bunch, nor to anyone else in the house, and you had better go to your room at the usual time.
I beg your pardon.
Wendy, this one is exclusively for you and Vodhalla. Yes, Mr. Abney is basically Paul Darrow from Blake 7. Hello, Villa. I think you might have found I've killed you. Also, observe my sexy velvet shoulder pads. Trust me, that joke's gonna kill. Um, Here was a new excitement added to life. Stephen eagerly grasped at the opportunity of sitting up till 11 o'clock.
Oh, bless him.
He looked in at the library door on his way upstairs that evening and saw I need to say this in a manner which I can't.
Brazier.
Thank you. He looked in at the library door on his way upstairs that evening and saw a brazier, which he had often noticed in the corner of the room, moved out before the fire. An old silver-gilt cup stood on the table filled with red wine, and some written sheets of paper lay near it. Miss Abney was sprinkling some incense on the brazier from a round silver box as Stephen passed, but did not seem to notice his step.
Well, there's our artifact.
The wind had fallen, and there was a still night and a full moon.
Okay, that's not a good sign.
At about 10 o'clock, Stephen was standing at the open window of his bedroom, looking out over the country. Still as the night was, the mysterious population of the distant moonlit woods was not yet lulled to rest. From time to time, strange cries, as of lost and despairing wanderers, sounded from across the mere. They might be the notes of owls or water birds, yet they did not quite resemble either sound. Were not they coming nearer? Now they sounded from the nearer side of the water, and in a few moments they seemed to be floating about among the shrubberies. Then they ceased. But just as Stephen was thinking of shutting the window and resuming his reading of Robinson Crusoe, he caught sight of two figures standing on the gravelled terrace that ran along the garden side of the wall. Figures of a boy and a girl, as it seemed. They stood side by side, looking up at the windows. Something in the form of the girl recalled irresistibly his dream of the figure in the bath. The boy inspired him with more acute fear. While the girl stood still, half smiling, with her hands clasped over her heart, the boy, a thin shape with black hair and ragged clothing, raised his arms in the air with an appearance of menace and of unappeasable hunger and longing. The moon shone upon his almost transparent hands, and Stephen saw that the nails were fearfully long, and that the light shone through them. As he stood with his arms thus raised, he disclosed a terrifying spectacle. On the left side of his chest there opened a black and gaping rent, and there fell upon Stephen's brain, rather than upon his ear, the impression of one of those hungry and desolate cries that he had heard resounding over the woods of Aswarby all that evening. In another moment this dreadful pair had moved swiftly and noiselessly over the dry gravel, and he saw them no more. Inexpressibly frightened as he was, he determined to take his candle and go down to Mr. Abney's study, for the hour appointed for their meeting was near at hand.
No.
The study or library opened out of the front hall on one side, and Stephen, urged on by his terrors, did not take long in getting there. To effect an entrance was not so easy. It was not locked, he felt sure, for the key was on the outside of the door as usual. Repeated knocks produced no answer. Mr. Abney was engaged. He was speaking. What? Why did he try to cry out? And why was the cry choked in his throat? Had he too seen the mysterious children? But now everything was quiet, and the door yielded to Stephen's terrified and frantic pushing. On the table in Mr. Abney's study, certain papers were found which explained the situation to Stephen Elliott when he was of an age to understand them. The most important sentences were as follows. It was a belief very strongly and generally held by the ancients, of whose wisdom in these matters I have had such experience as induces me to place confidence in their assertions, that by enacting certain processes, which to us moderns have something of a barbaric complexion, a very remarkable enlightenment of the spiritual faculties in man may be attained. That, for example, by absorbing the personalities of a certain number of his fellow creatures, an individual may gain a complete ascendancy over those orders of spiritual beings which control the elemental forces of our universe.
Uh-huh.
It is recorded of Simon Magus that he was able to fly in the air, to become invisible, or to assume any form he pleased by the agency of the soul of a boy whom, to use the libellous phrase employed by the author of the Clementine Recognitions, he had murdered. I find it set down, moreover, with considerable detail in the writings of Hermes Trismegistus, that similar happy results may be produced by the absorption of the hearts of not less than 3 human beings below the age of 21 years. To the testing of the truth of this receipt, I have devoted the greater part of the last 20 years, selecting as the corpora vilia of my experiment such persons as could conveniently be removed without occasioning a sensible gap in society. The first step I effected by the removal of one Phoebe Stanley, a girl of gypsy extraction, on March 24th, 1792. The second by the removal of a wandering Italian lad named Giovanni Paoli on the night of March 23rd, 1805. The final victim, to employ a word repugnant in the highest degree to my feelings, must be my cousin, Stephen Elliott. His day must be this March 24th, 1812.
But why does it have to be his cousin?
The best means of effecting the required absorption is to remove the heart from the living subject, to reduce it to ashes, and to mingle them with about a pint of some red wine, preferably port. The remains of the first 2 subjects at least it will be well to conceal. A disused bathroom or wine cellar will be found convenient for such a purpose. Some annoyance may be experienced from the psychic portion of the subjects, which popular language dignifies with the name ghosts. But the man of philosophic temperament, to whom alone the experiment is appropriate, will be little prone to attach importance to the feeble efforts of those beings to wreak their vengeance on him. I contemplate with the liveliest satisfaction the enlarged and emancipated existence which the experiment, if successful, will confer on me. Not only placing me beyond the reach of human justice, so called, but eliminating to a great extent the prospect of death itself.
Modestly.
Abney was found in his chair, his head thrown back, his face stamped with an expression of rage, fright, and mortal pain. In his left side was a terrible lacerated wound exposing the heart. There was no blood on his hands, and the long knife that lay on the table was perfectly clean. A savage wildcat might have inflicted the injuries. The window of the study was open, and it was the opinion of the coroner that Mr. Abney had met his death by the agency of some wild creature. But Stephen Elliott's study of the papers I have quoted led him to a very different conclusion.
I am made of questions. The first of which is he is he gone now? Having gotten revenge? Or is it still in the cellar?
Yet again, the other thing that we've got here, of course, is just servants who know an awful lot, who are basically being told you best shut your mouth if you wish to live to have some more gruel. Proles.
I'm like, that woman saw two children go missing. And then he just picks up a third. I'm like,
The impression I get is that the butler
right,
drinks
Mr. Jin? I am impressed that James managed to cram that much racist stereotypes into one character.
Good God, Holmes, how did this man die? Well, Watson, the truth of the matter is very simple. First, a wildcat picked the lock. Then it climbed through the window. Then it delivered a precision kung fu Hadouken strike to his left side, lacerating him and destroying his heart.
Right?
You're on the skunk again, aren't you, Holmes? Yes, Watson, I am.
I just... Oh...
It's not my place to say. So much horror lives there.
Right?
One of the interesting things that keeps coming up, and I actually really like this, I try and make it kind of part of my operating philosophy when it comes to, culture, is I try really hard to never be frightened to say if I haven't read something or I haven't played something or heard something or watched something. This is why we're watching Ginger Snaps on Friday night, because I've never seen it. I've seen the flashback one, which is one of the sequels, but I've never seen the original.
Ginger Snap movies. You've seen... It sounds like you've seen the second one, but you haven't seen the first one. And the first one is one of the best horror movies ever, and is certainly one of my all-time favorite werewolf movies, for sure. So that is happening on Friday with Takeout.
And the connection of that to this is that I really, really like that, whether through circumstance or design, what James is actually doing here is almost baking in a reading list. And doing so in a really subtle kind of metatextual way. It's also racist as shit. I mean,
Yes.
that's a fucking given. This one more than any other we've done so far. But I really like that he references people like Trismegistus. He references various, moderately well-established canonical scholars, and I'm sure there are people in the chat who know this more than I do.
Yeah.
And
Corpus
that
Hermectium and such.
from like a 21st century point of view, that actually gives the story an extra twist. That it's not just that Abney is doing this awful, heinous shit, but he's perverting extant pagan rites and beliefs to do it.
Yeah, very much so.
So what you actually have is, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I have been delivering it for the last 45 years. The fact that the English class system is machine built on hate and death.
Yeah.
And it's not just
It's not just the people at the top who benefit from it, who perpetuate it. It's the fact that it permeates absolutely every aspect of this household. I mean, this woman is an enabler. She knows full well there is a dead child's desiccated body in the spare bathroom. Why else did she put up the curtains?
And if she didn't, Then she knew when she saw it, and instead of getting the kid out of the house and calling the police that night, she puts the curtain back up. By the way, a curtain, not to mention a partially glass window into a bathroom. Oh my God, this country. I'm sure I've told you this before, but my parents, for reasons which defy understanding, have a frosted glass door on their bathroom,
I do not understand that.
and it's a straight line, and the toilet's absolutely in line of sight. And when I moved back there after the divorce, I lost count of the amount of times I would be on the toilet, and their dog would trundle past the door, and you see this kind of beige rectangle trot past. And it was like fucking Jurassic
I'm
Park,
sorry,
man.
this is totally a
Every
tangent,
time. Every time. I'm sitting there and I hear Sam Neill going, keep still. He keys on movement. And he walked past. And every time I thought, it's okay, I fooled him. And then he'd turn around, barge the door open, because he's a fucking Jack Russell Terrier cross, so he's made of shoulder muscle. And just like trundle up to me sitting on the toilet, dropping his disgusting, partially digested rubber ball covered in spit into my pants. And we just start doing this.
You're not throwing the ball, human. What's going on here?
In your own time.
Oh. No frosted. Just, yeah. I'm very sorry you went through that, but also, that's hilarious. Yes. Yes, it was.
And yes, just startling levels
This
of racism.
poor child, though. I mean, think about how he must feel. He gets orphaned, and let's talk about that. Why was he an orphan?
Oh, I think you nailed it the first time. He was orphaned.
I think he was orphaned and then sent to the creepy racist uncle, like literally as a sacrifice. Okay.
Presumably with Mrs. Bunch going, oh, well, it's very sad, but, at least he's little. He probably won't feel anything.
Right?
Could be worse. Could be a foreign kid again. They're foreigners.
Oh my
Mrs.
gosh.
Bunch would have fucking voted for Brexit.
Yes.
Right now, Mrs. Bunch would be going, well, Boris Johnson makes some very good points, and I do think he's charming.
No!
I think we've all been quite mean to him.
All right. Okay. I might need to throw up a little bit in my mouth after that one. Thank you very so much for that. Yes. Yeah, so, if you're a 12-year-old boy and mysterious things happen and there are ghosts and people are talking all about the former children who used to be in your very bedroom who aren't there anymore, run.
Also, not for nothing, but this really does feel like the second seemingly inevitable Emma James Netflix story. When the first one is just Murder, She Wrote with Emma James showing up going, okay, perhaps this time I'll... Oh, look, sir, we found a crown. Oh, for fuck's...
Right? And again, it's very much in the James style. We've got some sort of mysterious silver gauntlet. We've got, like, ghostly, windy things going on. We've got rich eccentric in the country.
Mysterious things in the woods.
What's interesting about the rich eccentric in the country, though, is hello to the new follower. Thank you so much for joining us. Is that it's not always that person who is the villain. Sometimes they are a point of view character. This is one of the few times where the mysterious old rich person who the protagonist is staying with is the villain, which is nice. There's a good creative mix.
It also feels like someone's superhero origin story. Why do you do this, Mr. Elliot? Well, when I was a child, my parents were killed by my uncle, who then tried to murder me to become immortal.
Ooh.
What happened? It didn't work.
This character.
Yes, absolutely.
This with his, like, he hangs out with, vampire hunters and...
Oh, I'd go the whole hog. I'd have the two kid ghosts as his sidekicks. I would Randall and Hopkirk deceased that mess. Because then you also have the inbuilt interesting conflict of him being, no, it's fine. I have trauma and I'm dealing with it and I can help other people. And the ghosts, especially if you keep them as kids, who are just like, he's messing with someone. I'm going to kill him.
I don't even think you have to keep those two particular ghosts. You could just have him keep the ability to perceive ghosts.
Yes.
And that's why he's such a good supernatural detector, is that he went through this experience, he lived, he realizes and accepts that he had supernatural assistance, and therefore he believes victims when he finds them, lots of different kind of classic paranormal investigator stuff you can do with this as an origin story for
Why
sure.
do you do what you do, Mr. Elliot? I was the final boy.
Final boy, final girl theory, yeah, very much so. And I'm trying to think about the gender politics of this for a moment, because what's so blatant in, I mean, he says it as much in his statement, is what's the guy's name? Abney?
Yeah, it's Mr. Abney.
Abney specifically talks about how he's looking for people who society won't notice. And given that this is written at the time period it was, that means the dispossessed, the poor, a random girl, wandering person not from the local area, that's there. There wasn't anything particularly gendered about the victims. I do want to know why he decided or fixated on the fact that the final victim, excuse me, had to be his nephew.
I don't think it's that.
Oh, well, but he
I
says as much. He says the final victim must be my cousin.
I come at that from a slightly different angle, and I think it's one of those issues where time and the evolution of language has made that line more ambiguous than it is. I think what he actually means is I've done some research and realized that my cousin's birthday is the final one on the list of dates I have to hit, so I have
Hmm.
acquired him.
Oh, that might be it. That maybe the first. I mean, I'm completely just putting this together off the fly here, but if his first victim was randomly done, and then he realized he had to have a specific, that specific day. But that doesn't make sense because Phoebe, the girl, was killed on March 24th, Giovanni March 23rd, and then Stephen was slated for March 24th. So I think it's equinox related because there's a couple references to the equinox in the story.
Stephen was chosen because Abney chose him to
Yeah,
steal shamelessly from another horror dude. Yeah, exactly.
very much so. Yeah. But yeah, this is a very League of Extraordinary Gentlemen-esque kind of origin story, isn't it?
To paraphrase one of my favorite quotes at the moment, if you get invited to a mysterious English country house to just hang out, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't. No, I must respectfully decline, and I will be watching from the next property over for when the hanky shit goes down so that I can intervene, right?
I keep thinking about how you can trace characters like this across 3 generations and a couple of centuries of time quite easily. That someone like Stephen Elliott, who survives, grows up and teaches people, and those people then move out into the world and begin investigating this stuff. I mean, I don't quite know how the timings line up, but with my postmodern fiction head on, you could absolutely see him as Kanaki the Ghost Finder's ward
Yeah.
or one of his students, and how you go from that up through the obvious point where Kanaki has a screaming fallout with Bernard Quatermass, his most gifted and most scientifically obsessed student who goes off and does awful shit. And then, Constantine gets drunk with the pair of them
Well,
and
think
learns
about it. If
stuff.
Elliot is 12, is going to turn 13 in 1812, then what time is like Holmes? Is 1860s, 70s, 80s?
Doing some
Somewhere in that
research.
period of time.
La
But
la la la
I
la
mean,
la
you
la.
can start to trace like influences, kind of like you can trace, um, the Mummy to Indiana Jones to Laura Croft
To
and
Nathan Drake.
Nathan Drake and yeah, exactly.
Holmes is active between 1880 and 1914, so an older Stephen Elliott,
Yeah.
skilled in the arts of detection and mostly retired, would absolutely be someone he would want to
He'd
study
have
with.
to have been retired by then. He'd be in his 80s.
And he also has access to supernatural texts which are concerned with longevity.
That's the other thing to keep in mind is that Stephen is going to, I mean, if his parents are dead and his uncle doesn't have any family, he's going to inherit this house and all the hanky supernatural stuff that comes along with it. So, ooh, this could become like, Xavier's Academy for Gifted Supernatural Detectorists or whatever. Okay, we're like writing an entire comic book series here now.
That reminds me, actually, we're getting a TV version of Dead Boy Detectives quite soon, which is this, basically, but Stephen's much less lucky.
Stitch says Mulder and Scully for the 1800s. Supernatural Stephen Elliott on the same case as a skeptical Holmes.
All I can see now is, it was steam. No, Scully, it wasn't. Just steam and pneumatics, they could accomplish anything.
Well, because think about who the other Holmes contemporary is. It's, Houdini, who was a believer, and Holmes and what's the other guy's name? The other writer.
Conan Doyle?
Doyle, that's it.
So now is a good time to introduce everybody to Necronauts. Necronauts is a graphic novel written by Gordon Rennie with art by Fraser Irving. The elevator pitch for this is literally, he's Charles Fort, he's Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, he's Harry Houdini, he may or may not be Charles Lindbergh. Lovecraft's also there. They
Lindbergh
fight
as
crime.
the Lindbergh baby Lindbergh.
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was a girl.
Nope.
I thought the Lindbergh baby was a girl. Now I'm going to have to look that up. Hold on. Lindbergh baby.
Real-time research for you tonight, folks.
Yes.
Necronauts is hella good.
We're just going to go on every tangent today.
Remember, we're never going to go back to Dinosaur Island.
We're not going back to Dinosaur
Island. La 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 la.
All right, come on, Lindbergh baby. I can't spell. It has a D in it, that's why.
Wow, you cannot get Necronauts for love nor money. Oh no, here we go. Well, a second-hand copy.
20-month-old son of Charles Lindbergh and Anne Morrow. Yeah, okay.
A second-hand copy of Necronauts will set you back a princely sum of £40.
He did, but Houdini was a believer. He was very good at debunking things, and that's why he debunked them, is he wanted to find the truth. Oh, wait, I thought it was the other way around. Doyle was the believer, and Houdini was the skeptic? I can't remember.
I've actually I used to do a magic routine based on this.
Okay.
It's a really interesting story, and it's one of those stories which intersects beautifully with fact and fiction. Houdini really wanted to believe, and didn't. Because he had a lot of proof that there were a lot of charlatans in spiritual circles.
And he was one of them.
Oh, for a time. He employed a fantastic lady detective who went undercover in seances across the US to debunk them. I'm going to keep talking, but I'm also going to look up Hocus Pocus by Rick Worth and Jordan Culver.
I got it. Go ahead.
Great, which is a stunningly great comic series about the history of magic and the supernatural. And they do a whole bit about her. Houdini really, really wanted to believe. He wanted the supernatural to be real because he missed his mum. He was very, very close to her, and when she died, he was devastated, and he spent a long time trying to make contact with her via mediums and spiritualism. When it became apparent people were taking his money, he became
They have a poll quote from the full lid on Hocus Pocus's website.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, good job, lads.
As enthusiastic and welcoming as it is wry and discerning. Every page fizzes with this benign conspiracy of magic revealed and celebrated. It's unlike any other comic I've read.
Yeah, it's really quite good. You can maybe tell. I was fond.
It was the Halloween special last year. I remember that.
But yeah, Houdini got wrathful, so he started debunking mediums. And the routine which I was taught, and I don't know whether this was true or not, I just really love it, was that despite this, every year he tried to make contact, and he failed. And he had an understanding with his friends that once he died, they would try and make contact at a specific time with him. And the routine I was taught was 2 or 3 really basic tricks. There's a couple of disappearances and an appearance, which were meant to reflect the experiment that was set up every year to give him a chance to make contact. And the payoff with the trick is he does. In reality, the official story goes, he never managed it.
Penn and Teller did that, and I do believe that Sir Hawking referenced it for his standing invitation to time travelers.
I believe he did,
Yeah,
yes.
because Stephen Hawking had a standing invitation that there would be like a specific date that any time traveler should come to a party that he would, welcome them from. And he said he took the inspiration for it from this Conan Doyle story.
Houdini was an interesting guy.
But
And
but the connection I wanted to make here is that the other contemporary of Doyle and correspondent was Edgar Rice Burroughs.
mhm.
Right? And Burroughs was a contemporary of our least favorite bigot from Massachusetts. So the creation of the pulp era of weird tales, untold stories, etc., has been kind of, you can trace this line of influence down, and it's very easy to see a character like Stephen Elliott just fitting right into that timeline.
They still hold it.
She would go and try to make contact with him while
The
also
Magic
debunking
Castle
people.
still holds the Houdini seance.
Really?
Yep, you can buy tickets.
That's hilarious. I think that's a brilliant touristy thing.
Yes, he did. Thanks, Hawkeye.
Have a word or phrase or something he told his wife he would say if he did come back as a ghost, and she would go and try to make contact with him while also debunking people. Nice. Hey, do we need a if you die, this is how I prove your ghost is real phrase?
I think that's going to become very apparent to you quite fast.
I mean, you're not going to die for a million years, and then I'm going to download you into a robot body. So this
we've been over this. You've taken the measurements whilst I was asleep.
Yes. I measured your head while you were asleep. Yes, exactly. I told you so. Now you owe me a $5, right? Exactly. I feel like Jonah Magnus would have found Arthur Conan Doyle
just
hilarious.
Like, hands on his desk, it's like, no, really, Arthur, do go on.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like you're on to something.
Stephen Elliott refuses to give Jonah Magnus a statement. Very much so. Very much so. Okay, folks, we've been going almost an hour and a half, so why don't we take a little bit of a break, and then we will come back and do some shenanigans. Let me find. I made a new button, so hopefully this one will work this time.
Shenanigans.
Right? Exactly.
La, 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 la,
So we're going to step away for a couple minutes. There will be a little message to remind you to do the same. Take a stretch, get a drink of water, make sure you move, and all that good stuff. And we will be right back.
Hey folks, how are you doing?
Okay, Validation and Biscuits is the name of my...
Half Man, Half Biscuit cover band.
Apparently that's an actual band name.
Not only is that an actual band name, but they are responsible for the 2 classic albums Back in the DHSS and Back in the DHSS Again, and also the song Vatican Broadside, which is sung to the tune of Glory, Glory, Hallelujah.
Vatican Broadside.
Vatican Broadside.
That's a great track.
The chorus to which is, and I swear I'm not making this up. The only lyrics are: the singer out of Slipknot went to Rome to see the Pope, repeated 3 or 4 times. And then the chorus is, and the Pope said to his aide, who the fucking hell is Slipknot? Who the fucking hell is Slipknot? Who the fucking hell is Slipknot in relation to me getting out of bed? That's the song.
Okay. And yes, that is an ace background for our last Pride Month stream. Thank you very much to Ducky for putting together a lovely selection of them.
Thank you, Ducky. You've been
greatly
doing
appreciate
amazing
it.
work.
And thank you very much to who jumped on it first, Hawkeye, for spotting it. I figured nothing less.
Also, Kiwi, I keep writing stuff for a horror-centric D&D game and worrying myself. That is a sign you are doing the right thing.
And also to take extended breaks.
Yes, I've had that exact experience a couple of times, and it's not just you, and it's not just me. Sarah Griffin, who is a spectacularly good voiceover artist, I work with an awful lot. The last time I hung out with them, this came up actually, because I think basically because we're very aware that, you know, the fields in which we work are full of people who aren't very nice a lot of the time. So when you find someone who's amazing, and Sarah's amazing, you're just like...
You just like lock arms. I will do everything with you from now on because you're nice and I can work with you. Yes, exactly.
But they mentioned that they had a colleague who was one of the nicest people they know and who was moderately well known for playing a deeply awful person on a TV show for a while. And one day Sarah actually went, so I mean, you're amazing. How do you do this? How are you so convincing? And they said his eyes went completely dead. He looked straight at them and went, everyone has a dark side, Sarah.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, should we go get some coffee? And they were like, yes.
You've got that in your back pocket, don't you?
I can do it. I just don't like to.
What? No, I don't mean actually going to outside. I mean staring them down and saying that line.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Just that.
Right.
It's like the non-cute version of when a German Shepherd goes, "Oh."
No. You're adorable. All right, we've got some shenanigans for you folks. Let me. Pardon me. See, we went on yet another tangent. We're getting very, very good at going on tangents. What can I say? Did I want to show off that I made a button so that there could be tangents?
Goddamn right you did. Yes. And why wouldn't you?
Yes,
I mean, come on
did.
now.
Because it's adorable and I love it very much. He worked retail. You could just embody the worst customers ever. Can we talk about that phrase? This is another tangent, like officially, but so the phrase "the customer is always right" is only a part of the sentence. The full sentence is "the customer is always right in matters of taste," which means I'm gonna let you buy that fugly thing, but that doesn't mean I should take your shit. And I hate how that phrase has been shortened to mean the customer is always right, as if that is the entire sentiment. And no. Sorry.
No.
Just no. No Karens in this neck of the woods. All right. Now that I've gone on another... That's the wrong button! There it is. Now that I've gone on another tangent. We can actually do shenanigans. I'm drunk with power. I have buttons. Just let me roll with it. Just roll with it, okay? I just want to push the
Fix it in post. We'll fix it in post.
We'll fix it in post! Right, here's the shenanigans. Okay. Content warnings for shenanigans may include death and dying, horror themes, mental health and trauma, sexual themes, socio-political themes, violence, alcohol, bodily fluids, drug use, and swearing. We have an entire Twitter thread of... how was this phrased?
I can provide some context for you. Also, a long overdue shout out to Cyberpunk Art for our amazing opening.
Yes. Where's my fan art button? There we go. Thank you very much.
I can provide some context for you. This is basically a thread of fictional pitches from justifiably pretty legendary TV show Mad Men.
Comment any movie, and I'll reply with Don Draper pitching that movie.
Yes. So, this is awful 1960s ad men pitching modern movies.
All right, so I'm going to do this. And I'm going to pick them, and then you're going to read the pitch, okay?
Okay.
So scroll with me. The Mario movie.
Don. For 40 years, Mario has been a joke. Meatballs, plumbing, cliches that only relate to Italian markets. So what if we made Mario a man for all people, with a new voice that speaks for everyone? Roger. All American Mario! Even the Japanese will love it!
The French Dispatch.
Don. When I say Wes Anderson, what comes to mind?
Peggy. Quirky.
Salvatore. Delightful. Pete. Annoying. Don. Yes! And these are all qualities we associate with the French. Did you know Wes Anderson is actually from Texas? Pete. What? Don. I say we finally bring Wes to France.
There's a character that's semi-possessed by a hunting... Ah, okay. You're talking about the campaign here. Let me pick another one. Here we go. Scroll with me. The Thing.
Don. What if I told you one of the people in this room was an alien? A thing, a creature that could transform to look like anything. Pete, I'd tell it to turn into Anne Margaret and maybe we could have some fun. Don
Smack.
takes out a flamethrower. Pete, I'll make this quick.
Burlesque.
I have 3 words for you. Cher, Christina, Thanksgiving. With our bellies and hearts full, the ultimate comfort this holiday season will not be our families at the table, but the legends on the screen.
That's a good one. Nice response. The Sixth Sense.
Don. Ghosts. If they were real, then we try to market to them. Pete. The ghost market does remain largely untapped. Don. Stares down Pete. Don. Now, where some people see dead people, I see opportunity.
Uh-huh. The Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom of the Opera. Don, The Phantom of the Opera, one of the most successful stage shows ever, is now a major motion picture.
Well, Peggy, doesn't that sound like it sells itself?
Don, not when I don't give a shit about musicals.
There we go. Some of these movies I don't recognize, so I'm trying to find good ones. Okay, scroll down with me a little bit, okay?
Okay.
Crash.
Don, after a car accident, you feel confusion, and you feel fear, and you feel anger. What if you felt lust as well? Roger, then I get into more car accidents. Don, gentlemen, this is a film so perverse, the French booed it. How do you sell sex that even the French don't want?
That is a messed up movie, just for the record. Pulp Fiction.
Nostalgia. It's delicate but potent, like an adrenaline needle being stabbed into the heart.
Excellent line. Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed.
Don, Scooby-Doo 2. This time, we're going to unleash the monsters. Roger, were they not unleashed the first time? Don, more ghouls, more goblins, more ghosts.
Peggy, Mr. Draper, didn't the first film feel a bit too adult for children?
Don, we'll be giving Shaggy breasts this time.
Oh my god. No. No. Speed Racer.
Good choice. Don, who here watched the Matrix sequels and thought the studio needed to reel the Wachowskis in? Everyone but Salvatore raises their hand. Don, well, I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. With Speed Racer, now children can have their audience expectations rocked as well.
I love that movie. Unironically, wonderfully, fantastically. Okay. Cats.
You skip Morbius? You skip Morbius for cats?
Okay, fine. Morbius.
Don, Morbius. A new Marvel legend arrives. Roger. Okay, why do I care? Pete, our data shows that his catchphrase, "It's Morbin time," is very popular with the younger demographic.
Peggy, he never says that. I saw the movie twice. He never said it.
Don, you saw it twice?
Right, now can we do cats?
Yes! Don, our pets. Sometimes we look at them and feel they might be human. Doc Phillips, I don't. Roger, cats. Horrifyingly human. I hate it, but I can't look away. Don, we do have one major issue. The current editor of the film includes their buttholes.
Just someday there's going to be a documentary about the making of that movie, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be wonderful and terrible.
I choose to believe there was a moment during the filming of that where Dame Judi Dench and Serene McKellen locked eyes and just had that conversation of, fuck.
Well, he has to now, Hawkeye.
What?
Read the chat.
Oh, hold on. You skip Morbius? You kick Morbius like the football? Jail for Marguerite! Jail for 1,000 years!
Great one-line review I saw for Cats. They let the audience in, and a minute later they wanted letting out. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay. City Slickers 2, The Legend of Curly's Gold.
Don, City Slickers left everyone asking, what if Curly had gold? Now we have an answer. Roger, an answer to what? How much money we're going to lose this quarter? Pete, Roger, I don't think you realize the franchise material City Slickers has to offer. Do it.
Oh, okay, fine. The Master.
I'm not talking about that one.
I know you're not! The Master!
Don, Scientology. It's scary, and we don't know much about it. Who better to convey than Joaquin Phoenix in a masterful performance?
Peggy. Scientology isn't scary.
Everyone looks concerned at Peggy. Elizabeth Moss played Peggy in Mad Men, and Elizabeth Moss definitely isn't a Scientologist, and definitely didn't leave an awards ceremony when a former Scientologist accepted an award for, I believe, her help in deprogramming Scientologists. Yes, President Bartlett's youngest daughter has made some choices. Do it.
The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension.
Don, now, where some of you see a box office bomb, I see a cult classic. Roger, this is a film about cults, Don? Don, no, but in years to come, it will have an almost cult-like following of fans. Roger, does that get us money right now? Don, no. Everyone lights cigarettes.
I detest that movie with the passion of 1,000
I still don't know
suns.
why.
That movie approaches that Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman-esque. It's all about strange juxtaposition and contextual embarrassment humor that I'm just like, no.
I think as you to Buckaroo Banzai meet a Monty Python.
Yeah, fair.
Plus, it doesn't help that at least two of the surviving pythons have both grown up into colossal dick bags. So
Yes, exactly. We can do a couple more of these. There's apparently a lot of them, but we can do one or two more. Yes, I'm totally making you do that. Too fast, too furious.
yes, because I would have to be made to do this one. Don, gentlemen, this is the sequel to The Fast and the Furious, meaning we need to make it twice as good. How do we tell audiences we've gone there? Pete, call it Faster and Furiouser? Roger, more fast and more furious? Don, for this sequel, we are too fast, too furious. Everyone claps.
All right, let's do one more. Oh, maybe two more because I kind of want to end. We're going to talk about that one. All right, next up, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Don, would you fight 7 evil exes for the woman you love? Roger, I wouldn't fight one. Don, Ramona Flowers isn't just Scott's dream girl. She's ours. His fight is our fight. Pete, not at the box office apparently.
I love that movie.
It's a great film.
It's a fantastic movie.
It's a film that's so good when I didn't enjoy Baby Driver at all, it was partially because it wasn't Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, well, Baby Driver had a lot of issues.
Also,
its star being one of them.
Also, the best version of Baby Driver is one of the first music videos Edgar Wright made, and it stars Nick Frost and Noel Fielding and Julian Barrett and several other people, luminaries of a particular age of British comedy. And it's 4 minutes long, and it's perfect. And Noel Fielding saying, "I don't read too good," lives in my mind rent-free.
All right, last one. Have you seen this movie?
What?
Showgirls.
No, I have not.
Oh! I can't decide whether I should inflict this upon you or not. No, there are much sexier lesbian movies with Gina Gershon.
Bound.
Bound.
Yep.
Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah.
Bound over Showgirls any day.
Anytime you say lesbian noir, you get to the N in noir, and people are like, "So Bound, yeah?"
Yeah. God, that movie just needed a million sequels. It's so good. Anyway.
Showgirls. Don, what do men want to see in a movie? Roger, beautiful women. Don, do we care what the plot is? Roger, absolutely not. Don, that's the beauty of a film like this. We can have it say whatever we want and we'll still get funding. They could talk about dog food.
Yes. Basically. On one hand, Terry Pratchett was a cool guy, but on the other hand, my one encounter with him, he roasted me mercilessly, and that haunts my memories. Oh, I'm terribly sorry
I'm
to
really
hear
sorry.
that. My understanding is the late, wonderful Mr. Pratchett had quite the sense of humor. And that's part of the thing I don't really enjoy about that style of British humor is it's very difficult for people who are not raised in it to know if it's satirical or not. But you don't have to tell that story if you don't
No,
want to.
you shouldn't feel pressured.
We'll leave it there
Not that anyone was pressuring you.
because
But
there are 1,000 billion other excellent. The B movie is on here. Clifford, Silence of the Space Jam, the Snyder cut of Justice League. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
the Snyder Cut of Justice League, which I'm still too exhausted to watch.
Oh, just no, just no. But hang on a second. Let me leave myself a little indicator of where we finished here because there are
I
so
know,
many.
okay, you're good. It's okay.
All right, go ahead. Da, 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 da.
Just
I cannot
sometimes
believe
my pastoral care senses kick in where they aren't needed, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's our show.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, we're up past Wendy's bedtime, so love to Wendy on the VOD. Hopefully she's watching this at a time where it is not past her bedtime, so she's like, oh crap, I have to go to sleep. That would suck.
Somewhere in New York, Wendy's just rolled over in bed and go, God damn it.
Wendy's not feeling terribly well tonight, so big love for Wendy for the VOD.
We need to look out that TikTok for her.
Which one?
The what could only be described as CPAP Top Gun.
Oh, yes. Oh, Rebecca, am I okay to read this? I will read it, and then you let us know if it's okay. Oh, okay. So Rebecca says it's okay. Okay, so I was 14 and I went to the Discworld convention for the first time. I lined up to get my book signed, and while I was there, I asked if he could quickly say hello to my video camera for my vlog. How wonderful. He proceeded to say, hello, I'm Terry Pratchett, and Becca is threatening to kill me unless I do this for her vlog, which is fine and funny. But he went on, hi, Becca. Hi, Becca's friends. Becca has friends. Isn't that amazing? And then I died inside. Oh. Embarrassment humor.
Yes. I'm really sorry that happened.
I'm sorry you got embarrassed. That's not really fun.
If it is any small consolation, just before the pandemic, we went to Destination Star Trek in Birmingham because it turned out Star Trek's destination to boldly go was Birmingham. And
really? You've never made that joke about that trip before.
I know it. Just put it together. And because Anson Mount from Strange New Worlds is a friend, and so we got to chat to him for a little bit, and he was in the signing line next to Brent Spiner, not LeVar Burton, because I would have gone full Troy from Community. Just
yes. Right? It would have been a.
you know. But we were chatting to a friend of ours who's a Star Trek author who was very, very happy that they very cleverly scheduled the guest announcement so it was actor, author, actor, author. So the authors never quite got that what audience response was. Brent Spiner, hey! This author, hey! Brent Spiner again, hey! You know, so it was a constant line of applause. But
nice.
Una was off the other side of the stage as Spiner came off, walked straight up to one of the other members of the cast and went, Jesus, this place is grim. We have to get out of here. Then saw that she was in his eye line and went, I mean, we should get some coffee.
Bless. bless. No. Right, let's tell folks what we've got coming up because I have to remember dates really quick.
Okay, I'll do that thing where I say the words,
Yes.
and you do that thing where you do the numbers.
Thinking.
The next time you will see us is Friday, when the latest issue of our Hugo-nominated newsletter, The Full Lid, will go live.
Which has an indie quote about, that wonderful Hocus Pocus comic.
Yes.
It's that comic, that issue of that comic is about the woman that he employed to infiltrate seances. She's freaking brilliant. She needs like her own show, very much so.
And she would just do really sarcastic aliases, like I think she used to sign into seances as Irma Fake.
Or something like that, just really cool things like that.
But that will include, amongst other things,
Words.
Words.
And pictures.
There is a piece in there about the most important Star Wars character in history. There's also a piece in there about the spectacularly good teen pregnancy comedy Plan B, which is absolutely as righteous and furious as you would expect.
And if you're kind of like me, you might need a little righteous fury about reproductive rights right about now. Oh, yes! Gulp shitto.
Yeah, indeed, gulp shitto.
Exactly.
And also some really huge burbs. I mean, just enormous burbs. You'll see why. I'll figure out.
Okay.
Then on Sunday, we will be returning to Outer Wilds, where we will continue our action archaeology.
I've become very, very skilled at landing on the face of a comet and melting through it at the correct period of time, but I have not become so skilled at finding the right tidy bowl of ghost matter to rinse myself down to get into the heart of the comet. But I'm getting better. So and all of that is much less stressful than being eaten by stupid
fish,
space angler fish.
Space fish.
Stupid space fish.
Then we'll be back here next Wednesday, when I believe we may have Anne guest.
That is correct. Ducky, please confirm this is the case. But I do believe you're having some of the
Glad you like that one.
Rogue Maker cast for join us. They're at mid-season now. They've reached the midpoint of the first season.
Yeah, it's all really easy from now. Because just the ship's exploded and the pods are all talking to each other. It's fine.
Everything's fine.
It's mostly just 5 episodes of processing trauma.
The rest of it's just all lovely sing-along in space. Space sing-along. Exactly. And guest. Yes, that is correct. Okay, great. And then, yeah, that's the next week. Now, not this coming Sunday, I gotta do math, the 3rd, but the following Sunday, the 10th, we will not be streaming on Sunday morning because it's my birthday weekend and we're going to go away for the weekend and it will be lovely. That's okay. I do believe Thursday nights is when they're doing the Rogue Maker live listens. So, Hawkeye, you could probably join in with that tomorrow night if you would like instead.
Mm-hmm.
I will be editing Full Lid, so unfortunately I will not be able to join you.
Marguerite's birthday.
That's correct. I have a birthday, and we're going to go stare at water and be not at home so I can't work. That's my hack. I have to leave the house so I will not work.
Hooray! Good news, Rebecca. So not just on the deadlines, but on the catch-up.
Catching up sounds fantastic. All right, I think that's everything we've got for this week.
I think it is.
Oh, we didn't show the boy.
Is he dressed for the day?
He is. He's in rude health. Absolutely. I mean, he's just here, boobing along in space. Very sus. Hiding. I would like to be in a space bucket right about now. Oh, it's a sphere. That will be a joke that will make more sense in July for a certain Pseudopod episode.
Yes, exactly. we may or may not have done a duet.
Exactly. Hey, Mick, how you doing? You are here just in time to say goodbye because we're wrapping up. The VOD awaits you. It does
indeed. Thank you so much, folks. We really appreciate you spending this time with us.
Thank you so much for coming along and for, decompressing for a little bit at the start of the stream like we all kind of needed.
Exactly. So we'll see you on Friday with the Full Lid and on Sunday with Outer Wilds. But there as now, I've been Alasdair.
And I've been Marguerite.
And this has been fun. We'll see you next time.
Good night, everybody.